There comes a moment in every person's life when they realize one of the greatest truths of personal development. You cannot build someone else's future while neglecting your own. Many people spend years trying to fix broken attitudes, repair unhealthy habits, and solve problems that don't belong to them. They believe that if they say the right words, give enough advice, or sacrifice enough of themselves, everyone around them will finally change. But life teaches a different lesson. Real growth begins the day you stop trying to control others and start becoming the best version of yourself. Because your greatest influence isn't found in what you tell people, it's found in who you become. One of the most freeing truths you can learn in life is that lasting change cannot be forced upon another person. No matter how much you love someone, care about them, or believe you know what's best for them, real transformation begins only when that person decides they are ready to grow. This principle can be difficult to accept because our natural instinct is to help the people we care about. We want to protect them from mistakes, spare them from pain, and guide them toward better decisions. Those intentions come from a place of compassion, but even the greatest advice in the world has little value if the person receiving it has no desire to apply it. Think about your own life for a moment. The lessons that shaped you the most probably weren't the ones you were forced to learn. They were the ones you embraced because something inside you changed. Maybe it was a failure that opened your eyes. Maybe it was a moment of disappointment that challenged your perspective. Or perhaps it was an inspiring vision of a better future that motivated you to take responsibility for your life. Whatever the reason, the decision to grow came from within. That same truth applies to everyone else. Many people spend years trying to convince family members, friends, co-workers, or partners to change their attitudes, habits, or behaviors. They repeat the same conversations, offer endless advice, and become emotionally exhausted when nothing improves. Over time, frustration replaces hope because they begin measuring their own peace by someone else's willingness to change. This creates a cycle of disappointment that drains emotional energy and distracts them from their own personal development. A wiser approach is to understand that your role is not to force transformation, but to create opportunities for encouragement. You can share your experiences, offer guidance when it is welcomed, and support people who genuinely want to improve. Beyond that, every individual must make their own choices and accept the consequences that come with them. Growth is deeply personal. It cannot be borrowed, purchased, or imposed. It must be chosen. One of the greatest demonstrations of emotional maturity is respecting another person's freedom to choose their own path, even when you disagree with it. This doesn't mean you stop caring or become indifferent. It means you recognize that everyone has their own journey, their own lessons, and their own timing. Some people change quickly after a single setback. Others need years of experience before they are ready to see life differently. Trying to rush that process often creates resistance instead of progress. Ironically, the more you stop trying to change people, the more influential you become. Why? Because people are naturally drawn to authenticity and consistency. They notice when someone lives with discipline, integrity, patience, and purpose. Your actions begin speaking louder than your opinions. Instead of feeling judged or pressured, others become curious. They start asking questions. They observe your habits. They wonder what helped you become calmer, stronger, or more confident. At that point, your life becomes a source of inspiration rather than your words becoming a source of pressure. This is why personal development always begins with the person in the mirror. Every hour you spend improving your mindset, strengthening your character, and building better habits creates a ripple effect that reaches far beyond yourself. Your example becomes your greatest contribution. People may ignore advice, but they rarely ignore consistent evidence that positive change is possible. Remember this timeless lesson. You can open a door, but you cannot make someone walk through it. You can shine a light, but you cannot force someone to see. The decision to grow belongs to each individual. When you accept that truth, you free yourself from unnecessary frustration and redirect your energy toward becoming the best version of yourself. And often, that quiet commitment to your own growth becomes the very thing that inspires others to begin their own journey. One of the most valuable lessons you can learn in life is that your energy is one of your greatest assets. Unlike money, time, or material possessions, once your mental and emotional energy is drained, it becomes difficult to think clearly, make wise decisions, stay disciplined, or pursue the goals that matter most. Every day, you wake up with a limited amount of focus, patience, motivation, and emotional strength. The question is not whether you have energy, it is where you choose to invest it. Many people unknowingly spend the majority of their emotional energy trying to solve problems that do not belong to them. They constantly worry about why someone refuses to change, why a friend keeps making the same mistakes, why a family member ignores good advice, or why a coworker lacks ambition. They replay conversations in their minds, search for better arguments, and convince themselves that if they just explain things one more time, everything will finally improve. But life rarely works that way. The truth is, every minute you spend trying to control someone else's choices is a minute you cannot spend improving your own life. Every ounce of emotional energy invested in frustration is energy taken away from your dreams, your health, your relationships, and your personal growth. Imagine trying to fill someone else's cup while your own is slowly becoming empty. Eventually, you will have nothing left to give, not because you didn't care, but because you forgot to take care of yourself. This doesn't mean you should become uncaring or indifferent. Compassion is a strength, and helping others is one of life's greatest privileges. However, there is a significant difference between supporting someone and carrying their entire burden. Support encourages responsibility. Carrying someone else's responsibilities often prevents them from developing their own strength. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is offer guidance, then allow people the freedom to make their own decisions and learn from their own experiences. Think of your energy as an investment portfolio. Wise investors don't place all of their resources into investments that never grow. They invest where there is potential, where consistent effort produces meaningful returns. Your personal growth deserves that same wisdom. Invest your energy into developing new skills, strengthening your character, improving your health, expanding your knowledge, and building habits that will serve you for years to come. These are investments that compound over time, producing confidence, resilience, wisdom, and lasting success. One of the greatest signs of emotional maturity is learning to ask yourself an important question before becoming involved in someone else's problems. Is this truly my responsibility? If the answer is no, then your role may simply be to encourage, listen, or offer advice when it's welcomed, not to rescue, control, or constantly intervene. This simple shift in perspective protects your peace while preserving your ability to help others from a place of strength rather than exhaustion. When you stop scattering your energy across problems you cannot solve, something remarkable happens. Your mind becomes clearer, your patience increases, your goals receive the attention they deserve, your confidence grows because you're making progress in areas you can actually control. Instead of ending each day emotionally drained by battles you could never win, you finish the day knowing you've taken meaningful steps toward becoming a better version of yourself. People are often inspired not by someone who sacrifices themselves trying to fix everyone else, but by someone who lives with purpose, balance, and quiet confidence. Your consistent growth becomes proof that positive change is possible. Without forcing anyone, preaching endlessly, or trying to control outcomes, your life becomes an example others naturally respect. Protect your energy because it fuels your future. Guard your focus because it shapes your destiny. Invest your emotional strength where it creates lasting value. The more intentionally you direct your energy toward your own growth, the more capable you become of making a genuine difference, not through exhaustion, but through example. And in the end, the greatest gift you can offer the people around you is not a life lived for them, but a life well lived by you. One of the greatest misunderstandings in human relationships is the belief that people change because they are pressured, corrected, or controlled. In reality, lasting influence rarely comes from trying to direct someone's every decision. It comes from the quiet power of living your values so consistently that others become inspired to examine their own lives. The truth is simple. Influence is far stronger than control. Control may produce temporary obedience, but influence creates lasting transformation. When people feel forced, they often resist, even if the advice they receive is good. Human beings naturally value freedom and the ability to make their own choices. The more someone feels pushed, the more likely they are to defend their current behavior. On the other hand, when they see someone living with discipline, integrity, patience, and purpose, curiosity begins to replace resistance. They start asking questions instead of making excuses. They become open because they were inspired, not pressured. Think about the people who have had the greatest positive impact on your life. Chances are, they didn't spend every conversation telling you what was wrong with you. Instead, they demonstrated qualities you admired. They showed consistency when others gave up. They remained calm during difficult times. They kept promises, honored their commitments, and lived according to principles rather than emotions. Their actions gave credibility to their words. They became examples worth following. This is one of life's most valuable lessons. People are always watching, even when they aren't listening. Your daily habits speak louder than your opinions. Your character communicates more powerfully than your advice. Every disciplined decision you make sends a silent message about what is possible. Whether it's taking care of your health, managing your finances wisely, treating others with respect, or remaining positive during challenges, your life becomes evidence that success is built through consistent actions rather than empty promises. Many people waste enormous amounts of energy trying to convince others to change while neglecting the one person they can truly influence every day, themselves. Imagine redirecting that energy toward improving your own habits. Read more books, learn new skills, strengthen your mindset, develop emotional intelligence, become more dependable, show greater patience. As you grow, your influence naturally expands because people trust what they can see more than what they can hear. This doesn't mean you should never offer advice. There are moments when guidance is valuable, especially when someone sincerely asks for it. But even then, advice is most effective when it comes from a life that reflects the principles being shared. Words without example often sound like criticism. Words supported by consistent action become wisdom. People are much more willing to accept guidance from someone whose life demonstrates the results of those principles. There is also a deep sense of peace that comes from letting go of the need to control others. You stop measuring your success by whether people follow your suggestions. Instead, you measure it by whether you are becoming a person of integrity, discipline, and kindness. This shift frees you from frustration and allows you to invest your energy where it creates the greatest return, your own personal growth. Ironically, the moment you stop trying to control people is often the moment your influence becomes stronger. Why? Because genuine influence respects freedom. It doesn't demand attention. It doesn't seek to dominate. It quietly earns respect through consistency. People notice those who remain steady during adversity, humble during success, and committed to growth regardless of circumstances. Your greatest opportunity is not to become someone who tells others how to live. Your greatest opportunity is to become someone whose life naturally encourages others to raise their own standards. A disciplined life becomes a silent teacher. A humble attitude becomes a powerful invitation. A strong character becomes proof that meaningful change is possible. In the end, the most effective leadership is not built on control, it is built on example. When you focus on becoming the best version of yourself, you create a kind of influence that no amount of pressure could ever achieve. Healthy boundaries are one of the greatest expressions of wisdom, maturity, and self-respect. Many people mistakenly believe that setting boundaries means becoming distant, uncaring, or selfish. In reality, healthy boundaries do the opposite. They create stronger relationships because they are built on honesty, mutual respect, and personal responsibility. Caring deeply about someone does not mean taking ownership of their choices, emotions, or responsibilities. It means offering support without sacrificing your own well-being, values, or peace of mind. One of the most common reasons people struggle with boundaries is the desire to be needed. We often feel that constantly solving other people's problems is proof of love or loyalty. But over time, this pattern can become emotionally exhausting. When you continually carry responsibilities that belong to someone else, you begin to neglect your own growth. Your dreams are delayed, your energy is drained, and your emotional reserves become depleted. Instead of building a healthy relationship, you unintentionally create dependence, where one person constantly gives and the other constantly receives. Healthy boundaries remind us that every individual is responsible for the direction of their own life. You can encourage someone, offer guidance, share your experience, and stand beside them during difficult seasons, but you cannot live their life for them. Every person must make their own decisions, learn from their own mistakes, and accept the consequences of their own actions. That process, although sometimes painful, is often where the greatest personal growth takes place. Think of a teacher in a classroom. A great teacher explains the lesson, answers questions, and provides encouragement, but cannot take the exam on behalf of the students. If the teacher were to complete every assignment for them, the students might achieve short-term success, but they would never develop the knowledge, confidence, or discipline needed for the future. In the same way, constantly rescuing people from every challenge may temporarily ease their discomfort, but it can also prevent them from developing resilience, accountability, and independence. Setting healthy boundaries also protects your emotional health. It allows you to say yes with sincerity and no without guilt when necessary. It helps you recognize the difference between being compassionate and becoming overwhelmed by responsibilities that are not yours to carry. Protecting your time, energy, and mental well-being is not an act of selfishness. It is an act of stewardship. You cannot consistently pour into others if your own emotional and spiritual reserves are empty. People often respect you more when your boundaries are clear and consistent. They understand where your responsibilities begin and where they end. This clarity reduces misunderstandings, resentment, and unnecessary conflict. It creates relationships based on mutual appreciation instead of obligation. The healthiest connections are not those where one person carries all the weight, but those where both individuals contribute, grow, and take responsibility for themselves. When you embrace healthy boundaries, you discover a powerful truth. You do not have to solve every problem to make a meaningful difference in someone's life. Sometimes your greatest gift is simply your presence, your encouragement, your willingness to listen, and the example you set through your own disciplined and balanced life. By respecting both your own responsibilities and the responsibilities of others, you create relationships that are stronger, healthier, and capable of lasting through every season of life. One of the most liberating truths you can learn is that the only life you are fully responsible for is your own. This idea may sound simple, but it has the power to transform the way you think, act, and grow. Many people spend years focusing on what others should do differently. They worry about changing someone's attitude, correcting someone's habits, or convincing someone to make better choices. In doing so, they often overlook the one area where they have complete influence: themselves. Personal responsibility begins the moment you stop asking, "Why won't they change?" and start asking, "What can I do to become better today?" That shift in perspective is where real growth begins. Life becomes much more productive when you realize that your future is not determined by the behavior of others, but by the decisions you make every day. While you cannot control circumstances, other people's opinions, or unexpected challenges, you always have control over your response. Your attitude, your work ethic, your habits, your discipline, and your willingness to learn are choices that belong entirely to you. When you accept responsibility for those choices, you stop waiting for perfect conditions and start creating progress, regardless of what is happening around you. There is tremendous strength in understanding that success is built from personal accountability. Every meaningful achievement begins with someone deciding to take ownership of their actions. Instead of making excuses, they look for solutions. Instead of blaming their environment, they improve their skills. Instead of comparing themselves to others, they compete with the person they were yesterday. This mindset builds confidence because every positive action becomes proof that you are capable of directing your own life. Confidence is not created by wishing for easier circumstances. It is earned by consistently keeping the promises you make to yourself. Personal responsibility also teaches emotional maturity. It reminds you that while you may influence others through kindness, encouragement, and example, you cannot carry their responsibilities for them. Everyone has their own journey, their own lessons, and their own decisions to make. Trying to take ownership of someone else's life often leads to frustration and disappointment because lasting change can never be forced. However, when you focus on becoming more disciplined, more patient, and more resilient, your own life becomes a powerful example that others can choose to follow. Every day presents countless opportunities to practice responsibility. Waking up on time, honoring your commitments, managing your finances wisely, taking care of your health, continuing to learn, speaking with integrity, and maintaining a positive attitude are all small acts of ownership. Individually, these actions may seem ordinary, but together they shape your character and determine your future. Success rarely arrives through one dramatic moment. It grows through thousands of responsible decisions made consistently over time. The habits you choose today quietly build the life you will experience tomorrow. There will always be moments when circumstances seem unfair or when obstacles appear beyond your control. During those times, it is tempting to blame the economy, difficult people, bad luck, or past mistakes. While these challenges are real, they do not have to become permanent excuses. The most successful people understand that although they cannot control everything that happens to them, they can always control how they respond. They choose perseverance over surrender, learning over complaining, and action over hesitation. That decision to take ownership, even in difficult seasons, separates those who simply dream from those who steadily move toward their goals. When you embrace personal responsibility, you also discover a deeper sense of freedom. You are no longer waiting for someone else's approval before taking action. You are no longer depending on perfect circumstances before beginning. Instead, you recognize that every new day offers another opportunity to improve yourself, strengthen your character, and move one step closer to your vision. This mindset replaces helplessness with purpose and uncertainty with direction. The greatest investment you will ever make is in becoming the best version of yourself. As you grow in discipline, integrity, emotional intelligence, and resilience, you naturally become a source of inspiration for those around you. People are far more influenced by consistent actions than by repeated advice. Your life becomes evidence that responsibility creates results, and your example speaks louder than words ever could. In the end, personal responsibility is not about carrying the weight of the entire world. It is about faithfully carrying the responsibility for your own choices, your own character, and your own future. That is where true success begins. Every decision you make, every habit you strengthen, and every challenge you face with courage adds another brick to the foundation of the life you are building. Take ownership of today, because when you consistently take responsibility for your present, you create a future filled with growth, fulfillment, and lasting success. One of the greatest signs of emotional intelligence is understanding that helping someone and trying to control someone are not the same thing. Many people confuse love with responsibility, believing that if they care deeply enough, they must solve every problem for the people around them. They step in too quickly, offer advice that was never requested, carry burdens that do not belong to them, and become emotionally exhausted because they believe someone else's happiness depends on their constant involvement. While these actions often come from a place of kindness, they can unintentionally create dependence instead of growth. Emotional intelligence teaches us that true support is rooted in wisdom, not impulse. It asks us to recognize when our presence is genuinely helpful and when our interference may prevent someone from learning the lessons life is trying to teach them. Every person has a journey filled with challenges, mistakes, victories, and moments of self-discovery. Those experiences shape character in ways that no amount of advice ever can. Sometimes people need encouragement, a listening ear, or a gentle reminder that they are capable of overcoming difficulties. Other times, they need the freedom to make their own decisions, even if those decisions lead to failure. Failure, while uncomfortable, often becomes the greatest teacher. It develops resilience, accountability, and maturity in ways that comfort never could. Emotional intelligence helps us accept this reality without becoming frustrated or discouraged. Instead of asking, "How can I fix this person?" we begin asking, "How can I support them while respecting their ability to grow?" Learning when to step back is not a sign of weakness or indifference. It is a sign of confidence, patience, and respect. It demonstrates trust in another person's ability to learn from experience and make better choices over time. Stepping back does not mean abandoning someone in their moment of need. It means refusing to take ownership of responsibilities that belong to them. You can offer guidance without taking control. You can encourage without demanding change. You can care deeply without sacrificing your own peace of mind. This balance is one of the most valuable skills a person can develop because it allows relationships to grow in a healthy and sustainable way. Emotional intelligence also requires self-awareness. Before giving advice, it encourages us to examine our own motives. Are we helping because the other person truly needs support, or because their struggles make us uncomfortable? Are we offering solutions because they asked for our perspective, or because we feel compelled to prove that we know better? These questions help us respond with humility instead of pride. Wise people understand that not every problem requires their opinion, and not every silence needs to be filled with instructions. Sometimes, the greatest gift we can offer is our patience, our understanding, and our willingness to simply be present without trying to control the outcome. When you develop this level of emotional maturity, your relationships become healthier and more meaningful. People feel respected rather than judged. They feel encouraged rather than pressured. They know they can come to you without fear of criticism because your support comes from compassion instead of control. Over time, your calm presence becomes more influential than constant advice ever could. By knowing when to help and when to step back, you protect your own energy, honor the growth of others, and create an environment where genuine transformation can happen naturally. That is the quiet strength of emotional intelligence, and it is one of the most powerful qualities anyone can cultivate for lasting personal growth and meaningful relationships. One of the most remarkable truths about personal growth is that the most powerful form of leadership does not begin with a title, a position of authority, or the ability to persuade others. It begins with the quiet decision to improve yourself every single day. The world often celebrates people who speak the loudest or appear to have the greatest influence, but lasting impact almost always comes from those who consistently develop their own character before attempting to shape someone else's. The more you invest in becoming wiser, more disciplined, more patient, and more emotionally balanced, the more your life naturally becomes an example that others notice and respect. Think about the people who have inspired you the most. Chances are they didn't constantly lecture you about what you should do. Instead, they demonstrated values through their actions. They showed integrity when it was difficult. They remained calm under pressure. They kept promises even when no one was watching. They stayed committed to their goals when others gave up. Their example spoke louder than their advice ever could. That is the quiet power of consistent self-improvement. When you make personal growth a daily habit, you begin to transform from the inside out. You become more confident, not because you believe you are better than others, but because you know you are becoming better than you were yesterday. Confidence built through discipline is steady and genuine. It doesn't depend on applause, approval, or comparison. It grows from keeping the promises you make to yourself and honoring the standards you have chosen to live by. As your habits improve, so does your influence. People naturally pay attention to those whose lives reflect consistency and purpose. When they see someone who manages challenges with composure, treats others with respect, and continues to grow despite setbacks, they become curious. They begin asking questions, seeking advice, and looking for guidance, not because they were pressured to do so, but because they witnessed the results of a life built on strong principles. This is why personal growth is one of the greatest investments you can ever make. Every book you read, every skill you develop, every healthy habit you practice, and every difficult lesson you embrace adds another layer to your character. These small improvements may seem insignificant on a single day, but over months and years, they create a person who is equipped to lead with wisdom rather than ego. Your life becomes proof that steady effort produces meaningful change. The beauty of leading through self-growth is that it inspires without forcing. It encourages without judging. It teaches without preaching. People are often more willing to follow someone who consistently lives their values than someone who constantly talks about them. Your actions become a silent invitation for others to believe that change is possible because they can see it happening in you. True leadership is not about controlling people or convincing everyone to agree with you. It is about becoming someone whose integrity, discipline, humility, and resilience naturally earn trust. When you commit to improving yourself day after day, your life becomes a living lesson that reminds others that success, fulfillment, and lasting influence are not built through shortcuts or empty words. They are built through the quiet, consistent practice of becoming just a little better each day, allowing your example to light the path for those who are ready to grow. Long-term success is not built on moments of excitement, bursts of motivation, or occasional acts of discipline. It is built on something much quieter and far more powerful: inner mastery. Before anyone can consistently achieve meaningful results in their career, relationships, finances, health, or personal goals, they must first learn to manage themselves. The greatest victories in life rarely begin in the outside world. They begin within. Every lasting accomplishment is first shaped by the quality of a person's thoughts, attitudes, habits, decisions, and emotional responses. Many people believe that success depends primarily on external opportunities, favorable circumstances, or the support of others. While these factors can certainly influence the journey, they cannot replace the importance of self-leadership. Two people may be given the same opportunity, yet produce completely different results because one has developed patience, discipline, and resilience, while the other is controlled by inconsistency, fear, or distraction. The difference is not found in the opportunity itself, but in the person who receives it. Inner mastery begins with understanding that your mind is your greatest asset. The way you think shapes the way you act, and the way you act repeatedly forms the habits that eventually determine your future. Every day, you are either strengthening habits that move you closer to your goals or reinforcing behaviors that quietly pull you away from them. Small decisions may seem insignificant in the moment, but over weeks, months, and years, they create a powerful momentum that becomes difficult to reverse. One of the most valuable habits you can develop is the ability to respond rather than react. Life will always present unexpected challenges, disappointments, criticism, and setbacks. You cannot control every event that happens around you, but you can control how you respond. Emotional maturity allows you to pause before speaking, to think before acting, and to remain focused even when circumstances are difficult. This ability protects your relationships, strengthens your decision-making, and helps you maintain steady progress toward your goals. Inner mastery also requires consistency. It is easy to feel inspired after listening to a motivational speech, reading a great book, or attending a seminar. The real challenge begins when the excitement fades and ordinary life returns. Success belongs to those who continue showing up even when no one is watching, even when progress feels slow, and even when immediate results are not visible. Discipline bridges the gap between today's effort and tomorrow's achievement. Another essential part of inner mastery is taking complete responsibility for your growth. Instead of blaming circumstances, waiting for perfect conditions, or expecting others to create your future, you choose to ask better questions. What can I learn from this experience? How can I improve? What action can I take today? These questions shift your attention away from excuses and toward solutions. They remind you that while you cannot control everything, you can always control your willingness to grow. As your habits improve, your confidence begins to grow naturally. Confidence is not built by making promises to yourself. It is built by keeping them. Every time you follow through on a commitment, whether it is waking up early, exercising, learning a new skill, or completing an important task, you strengthen your belief in your own ability. That quiet confidence becomes the foundation for bigger goals and greater opportunities. Long-term success is ultimately the result of becoming the kind of person who is prepared to handle greater responsibility. The world often rewards visible achievements, but those achievements are sustained by invisible qualities such as integrity, patience, humility, perseverance, and self-discipline. When you master yourself, you no longer depend on constant motivation or perfect circumstances to move forward. You become steady, purposeful, and resilient. Your habits begin working for you instead of against you. Your decisions become wiser, and your character becomes stronger. Over time, this inner transformation naturally creates lasting success, proving that the quality of your future is determined not by occasional grand actions, but by the consistent mastery of yourself, one day at a time.